Cold City Morgue. New York, 1994. The city was colder that winter than anyone remembered. Not the kind of cold that cracked windscreen glass or burst pipes, but the sort that seeped quietly into bones and stayed there. A metallic cold, like something dead was breathing on the back of your neck. Down in the subway tunnels, the cold was worst. Tom Mullen, nicknamed the Baptist by the tabloids, had become a ghost before he ever died. For 6 nights he stalked the 456 line, always around closing hours when the platforms thinned to uneasy stragglers, and the cleaners pretended not to hear footsteps that didn't match their sweepers. Before all that, he'd been a gardener for Bishop Calder, nothing more than a man with dirt under his nails and a shy, almost childlike laugh. But something changed. Something invited itself in. He began slipping into the bishop's vestments, staring into the rectory mirror with a strange intensity, muttering distorted scripture under his breath. He said it made him feel powerful. He said it made him feel chosen. On the 7th night, Detective Shawn Michaels cornered him on the edge of the Grand Central Tunnel. At 3:14 a.m., the station was a cavern of humming fluorescent light. The bulbs flickered in seizures overhead, casting the tiled walls in a jittering, colorless pattern. Mullen stood in his stolen priest's collar, streaked with blood. 6 for sin, he rasped, and the 7th for him. Something in the way he told him made Shawn's skin crawl. Then Mullen lunged. A gunshot echoed, rolling down the tunnel like thunder. The Baptist fell. But Shawn would swear, until the day he died, that Tom Mullen's lips were still moving, even after the life drained out of him. Silent shapes, forming words no one should hear, words that followed him home. Shawn tried to shake it off. Police, work in New York wasn't gentle. Nightmares were part of the job. But 3 days after the shooting, the whispers began. At first, he thought it was his neighbors. Thin walls, arguments, televisions, but the whisper always came from behind him. No matter where he moved, something breathed too close, as though leaning over his shoulder. Shawn. A rasp. Wet. Too low to belong to any living throat. He spun round each time, heart hammering, but the flat was empty. Just the dark and the faint buzz of a flickering hallway light outside. The second night, he heard it in his bathroom while brushing his teeth. Serve him. He dropped his toothbrush into the sink. The voice wasn't his imagination. It wasn't his neighbor. It was Tom Mullen's voice, and the whisper grew stronger. It snowed heavily, the night everything changed. Shawn walked home from the precinct, his breath puffing out in thick clouds as steam rose from subway vents. A homeless man slept near one, wrapped in a filthy quilt, face bruised with cold, shivering. Shawn slowed. Something tugged at him. Shawn, the voice whispered. Look at him. Look at what he wastes. A life unused. A soul unclean. Shawn clenched his jaw. Go away, he muttered. You're dead. Not dead. The voice slithered. Awake. A jolt of pain shot through Shawn's skull, like an electric spike. His vision blurred. His breath caught. The world tilted slightly, as though his mind had been knocked sideways. He didn't remember pulling out his pocket knife. He didn't remember kneeling beside the man. He only remembered the warm splash on his hand. Then, darkness. When he came to, he was dragging a body towards an alley, shoes slipping on the icy pavement, heart drumming so hard it hurt. No, he gasped, dropping the man's arm. His stomach twisted, and he vomited onto the snow. Above him, the streetlights flickered violently, as though reacting to something unseen. Each blink revealed shifting shadows, longer than they should have been, reaching, curling. Shawn staggered back, breath ragged. His pager rang suddenly, sharp, shrill, explosive in the silence. He flinched so hard he smacked his head on the wall. He checked it. No number, just a single message. 7. He dropped the pager and ran. Detective Mary C. had been Sean's partner for nearly 6 years, long enough to notice when something, or someone, was eating him alive. Sean had always been collected, cool-headed, but now he avoided eye contact, snapped at small questions, and visibly flinched when anyone mentioned the subway case. One afternoon at the precinct, she found him standing in front of the evidence board, staring at Tom Mullen's mugshot as if hypnotized. "Sean?" she asked softly. He didn't answer. "Sean?" He jolted, blinking in confusion. "What? You okay?" He forced a smile. "Long week." She didn't believe him, because the photo of Tom Mullen on the board, Mary could have sworn the eyes were looking at her instead of the camera. The morgue. On Wednesday night, Sean slipped out of the precinct early, muttering something about needing fresh air. Mary followed him, quietly. At a distance, he headed for the city morgue. By the time she reached the basement level, the corridors were lit by a row of buzzing fluorescent lights. Their flicker was unnervingly rhythmic, almost like breathing. The cold down there felt wrong. Not the crisp cold of winter, but a damp, morgue cold that sighed against the skin. She heard voices. One was Sean's. The other, she could not place. It was too low, too distorted, too dead. Mary edged towards the viewing room and peered in. Sean stood beside a metal table, speaking to a zipped-up body bag. The tag on the bag read, "Mullen, Tom." Sean leaned closer, listening. Then he whispered, "I'll finish it. I swear." Mary's breath hitched. The phone on the wall rang once, loud, sharp, echoing through the room. She clamped her hand over her mouth to keep from gasping. Sean didn't react to the phone at all. Mary backed away silently. If she confronted him here, in this basement full of shadows and cold breath, and things she didn't want to understand, she wasn't sure she'd get out. The next day, Sean didn't show up for work. Mary called his flat. No answer. She rang his pager. Still dead. She checked hospitals. Nothing. Even the sergeant seemed uneasy. By evening, Mary was back on the streets, retracing steps she wished she could forget. The snow had turned to slush, mixed with dirt. The city smelled of diesel and rot. She found Sean's tracks near a phone box. The handset hung off the hook, swinging slowly. As she approached, the phone rang. One sharp, violent ring. Mary froze. A shadow passed behind her in the reflection of the glass. She spun. No one there. The phone rang again. Her hand trembled as she lifted the receiver. Nothing. Just breathing. Slow. Wet. Wrong. She slammed it down. Her instinct screamed. The bishop. Something about Mullen's past job. Something about where this all began. She hailed a cab and headed towards the rectory. The bishop's house stood tall and quiet, buried in a sheet of snow. The windows were black, except for a faint glow on the second floor. Mary crept around to the back, crunching ice under her boots. The moment she touched the back door handle, a cold blast rushed past her, slamming the door inward with a force that was unmistakably not human. Inside, the lights flickered violently. A long shadow stretched across the hallway floor, far longer than Sean's body could make. She heard voices upstairs. 6 for sin. Then another voice layered over Sean's, slithering, vile. 7 for him. She sprinted up the stairs. At the top, she saw Sean, standing outside the bishop's bedroom, knife raised, chanting in a monotone that made her blood run cold. The bishop sat upright in bed, trembling. "Sean!" Mary shouted. He turned, but it wasn't Sean looking at her. His eyes were fully black, his mouth open too wide, as if dislocated. When he spoke, it was 2 voices at once. "Mary," they hissed. "Join us." He lunged. She grabbed the fireplace poker from the corner of the room. As he charged, she swung with all her strength. The poker smashed into his back with a sickening thud. He staggered but didn't fall. Mary screamed and swung again, and again, and again. At last, Shaun collapsed, unmoving. The bishop wept into his hands. Mary stared at Shaun's still body, chest heaving, poker trembling in her grip. The cold in the room lifted. The light steadied. The shadows retreated. But Mary knew she hadn't beaten anything, only delayed it. They buried Shaun on a grey Monday morning. The scandal meant no police escort, no eulogy, no colleagues. Only the priest, the gravedigger, and a coffin that looked too small for the man she'd known. Mary stood alone at the edge of the cemetery. The wind cut across the gravestones in harsh, icy gusts. When the priest finished mumbling the final rites, he walked away without looking back. The gravedigger gave her a sympathetic nod before lighting a cigarette and returning to his shed. Mary waited until she was alone. I'm sorry, partner, she whispered, touching the coffin lid. I know it wasn't truly you. The wind suddenly stopped. The trees froze, motionless. Even the distant city noise faded into silence. Then, from beneath her hand, a vibration. Mary. Shaun's voice, muffled, wrong, echoing through the wood. Don't leave me. She stumbled back, eyes wide. The cemetery lamps along the path flickered one by one. The shadows cast by the gravestones began to shift, slowly, deliberately, like they were crawling. Her phone rang. Her scream caught in her throat. She answered with trembling fingers. A whisper leaked through the speaker, too familiar, too broken, too impossibly alive. Sin follows sin. A pause. And you're next. The line went dead. The lights went out. The shadows moved. And Mary C. realized the nightmare hadn't ended with Shaun. It had only begun. The end.